Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, the one, the only show on the internet where we talk about the things that matter. I'm talking about sci-fi shows, fantasy programs, books, TV, music. And we are with our trio of hosts today. We got Dan Selcke, myself, WintersComing.net, Daniel Roman of WintersComing.net, Richard, producer Richard off there in the ether, and then Scruffy the dog in the background. Say hi, Scruffy.
Yes.
Hey,
Looking
yeah?
real cute.
Nothing?
Oh, he thought about it.
Nothing.
He's thinking about it.
He's
What a guy.
set. And thanks everybody who's watching. Hello, everybody. Hello, Martha. Oh, hello, Christian. Martha on the exercise bike. Very smart.
Nice.
I am sitting down. I didn't go in the office today. I did not. I usually ride my bike to the office. I'm a big bike rider, Martha. I don't know if you know that. But I didn't today because I'm lazy and it's raining. So I'm not getting exercise. And consequently,
good reasons.
My energy level will be low. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. I am not a big bike rider, so my energy level is about average today. Maybe it's a little low. I don't know. But no, I'm good. I'm excited to talk about some stuff. We've got a good show for you guys. Some interesting cover art, some show reviews, a whole bunch of stuff we're gonna get into. But Martha, totally support the bike riding while watching. That's just a good call.
Do you think people who exercise are happier on average, Daniel?
I mean, I would imagine so.
Do you exercise?
I think so. I do. Especially this year, I have been making much more of an effort to, and I've felt pretty good about that. So I will say yes. I am sure there is a study somewhere. That's why everyone was so happy at Castle Black, because that's all they do is exercise.
It's true.
Except when they're
yeah,
standing
you exercise. What do you bench?
Are you actually asking? Is that what's happening?
I don't know. I don't know how much I bench either. I have no idea.
The most I've benched recently is around 200, but
200. I think that's a lot. Isn't that a lot?
I haven't been pushing. It's a decent amount. But I'm without a spotter, so I have to be careful about it.
Oh, it's so dangerous. Yeah, because what if
I
don't know? What if it like falls and there's no one to lift off your neck? Whatever. That's a fear I have. What are we talking about today, Daniel?
Well, apparently we're talking about gym days, but also let's dive into our first topic, which is that this week there was a whole bunch of internet hype. You guys might have seen it on TikTok where people were losing it. You might have seen it on Twitter, but this artist, Ertak Altınos, is a Turkish artist. He is one of the official Song of Ice and Fire artists who did a bunch of artwork for The Rise of the Dragon, which was the big Fire and Blood coffee table book that came out last year. And he did a mock-up for The Winds of Winter.
Yeah, you just said cover. The Winds of Wind, which would be a good book. Yeah,
he did a mock-up for the Winds of Wind cover, and yeah, you can see it right there. That's his artwork. It's pretty beautiful. Let's just talk about it for a second. What do you think of this cover, Dan?
Well, first of all, I just want to put it out there that this is not the actual artwork for the book. It was kind of being spread around as it. This artist who, again, worked on the Rise of the Dragon, which is the Fire and Blood illustrated edition. I mean, made it personally. It's lovely. It's not real. It's fake, but it is pretty. And I think it, it just speaks to how so many folk. You know what? I am impressed that 12 years later, people still are anticipating this book. That hype has died down, but it's by no means died, which is an impressive testament to the enduring interest we'll have in the series, and that even they'll take very well done fan art as pictorial gospel.
Yeah, and I mean the fun thing with this is he designed this fan art specifically to look like the covers that are already out. Like he used pretty much the same typeface, the same type of design of a thing in the middle of the cover, and not really too much else on there.
They're easy covers to
do. Yeah. Well, I presume, not being an artist,
I mean, like,
say that
conceptually.
For sure,
I mean, like, there's like a very clear template, like objects, words, bam. You don't like think of like a whole wild design or anything.
Totally. It's not the same as like the covers for the Stormlight Archive that are these intricate paintings a guy does that they then make into a cover. But yeah, so this went around, and like Dan said, it is not the real cover. If you've heard people saying it is, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, because there were a whole lot of people thinking this meant this artist knew something we didn't. And he kind of, trolled a little bit at first, but then he came out and said, this is fan art. And we got another one today. So you may not have seen this one. But he also did one for A Dream of Spring today. And this one, he had to specify right up front because so many people are confused. This is fan art. Dan, what's the deal with this key? Because I was a little confused when I saw it at first.
Yeah, thank God they explain it right in the tweets, because I didn't know either. It's the key from A Feast for Crows that Pate, the novice maester in training, stole from a senile archmaester and turned over to a mysterious guy called the Alchemist in exchange for a gold coin. And then I think he dies at the end, and then the guy takes Pate's face, because I think he's Jack and Hagar. We're a million miles from the show here. None of this was remotely in the show, but
nope.
The artist thinks it might be important not to put in the cover of Dream of Spring. Probably not. We have no idea. This is for fun.
Yeah, this is just for fun. Will A Dream of Spring be purple? Who knows?
Purple,
but it's fun to dream of, these covers. So I like seeing this. You don't really hear people talk about A Dream of Spring a whole lot, probably because we don't have the Winds of Winter yet. Exactly.
Yeah. What's the point?
But it's
already hurting enough.
Yeah.
Who the hell is torturing themselves talking about the as yet? I mean, good Lord, I don't want to think about that. We've been waiting for Winds of Winter for the past 12 years. We really want to add on the pressure of when we're getting to spring on top of that. We can worry about that
we don't need
in our 50s or whatever. Like
that's right.
This time is we're worrying about the Winds of Winter.
Did you know? Well, obviously you wouldn't have known, but how does it feel at this point? It feels like reading A Song of Ice and Fire is a lifelong pursuit. Like, I don't know what you got into
waiting for A Song of Ice and Fire is a lifelong pursuit. Reading it.
Isn't that what I said?
You said reading it. If people are lucky enough to discover it after it's complete, it'll be like a year-long pursuit, and they'll be very happy. For people who are unfortunate to live in these years, it is a lifelong pursuit to wait. I compare it to the 7-Up series of documentary films by a guy whose name I don't remember, where the guy visits.
Okay.
You ever heard of this documentary series where he documents people?
Soda?
No, it's not. Like a group of 7-year-olds when they were 7 years old in like the 50s or something. He documented them and like, here's who they are. And then every 7 years after that, through their 60s, he revisited with them and just checked in on all of them to see how they are. That's a lifelong pursuit. This is just taking forever.
I suppose it's all in how you look at it. So Christian had a cool question I want to hit on here. He said, is that a dragon head in the reflection of the arrowhead in the Winds of Winter cover art? So there are two things in that cover art on the arrowhead. At the bottom, under the N and the T, there's a Targaryen sigil. The reflection is actually supposed to be a wolf, is what the artist said. So getting a little bit of that Stark and that Targaryen energy there in the Winds of Winter cover. Good question.
The 2014 Richard Linklater film Boyhood was filmed over the course of like 20 years. That was a lifelong pursuit, and it was lame because it ended up being a really lame movie. What's happened to George R. Martin? That's just taking a long time.
Hey, this is the masterpiece of his writing life. He can take the time he wants.
Filmed an actor when they were young, and then he filmed more scenes when they were teenagers, and then when they're young adults, like at the whole span of a life. And the movie was really boring and bad, but it was hardcore making. Yeah.
Yes, true.
The George R. Martin thing, he can make it every month. He
can. I'm glad he's taking his time. I'm sure I'm one of those people. I will wait. I think Martin.
I know. I'm
It's
kidding
funny.
mostly.
I went down the rabbit hole with Rothfuss actually yesterday.
Really?
I
Did
saw a
you
video.
find anything?
I did. Uh, maybe we can talk about it after. But basically, so Rothfuss is in this weird position where he promised fans he would release a chapter from The Doors of
Oh,
Stone
right.
like over a year ago. And he used it as a stretch goal for his charity. And now it's been a year and he hasn't released the chapter. And a lot of people are really upset because, you said it was for charity and people donated like over $1 million for that.
Ooh,
Um,
that is a juicy
so,
story.
and he's gone radio silent since then. So yeah, as much as people like to rag on George R. R. Martin, the guy, at least he communicates well enough that it's like, we know he's working on it. We know he's not done yet. At
Yeah,
least, there's
I've
nothing
always,
untoward going on there.
yeah, I've always compared those two authors who wrote a
It's an
very
easy
well-regarded
comparison.
book in 2011 and promised another book and haven't gotten it out for the last 12 years. Where yeah, it always
Yeah.
has seemed that George R. R. Martin is that's his process is just that damn slow. Whereas Rothfuss, I don't know what's going on. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's fair. I feel bad for the King Killer fans, honestly.
I know.
Just a smidge. But yeah, so
Kvote
that's
got knocked right off of Fandom
interesting.
Madness tournament.
Well, it's reflective of Kvothe's place in pop culture at the moment, in my opinion, at least somewhat, because
What
it's
place?
been a
He's not
real
getting on
long
next
time.
year. Yeah. Unless the book comes out, he's not getting
Maybe
on
not.
next year.
Nah, we need Kaladin Stormblessed from the Stormlight Archive on there next year, because
You
that
got to
book,
educate us,
I
Daniel.
think that's right. The fifth of those books, I believe, is coming out next year, and that dude, Brandon Sanderson will finish it.
Ooh,
But yeah, so that's
cool. Yeah, go on.
no. What were you gonna say?
I got the Three Body
Before I
Problem in the
rudely cut you
mail.
off.
The book. So I'm gonna start reading that shortly. I'm
Cool.
very excited about that. Big new Netflix
I'm
series.
so intrigued. I'm so intrigued to hear what you think of that series. I imagine we'll both end up probably reading at least some of it before the show comes out later this year, because
That's
I
cool.
want to know what the deal is.
But Daniel, what shows are out
Yeah.
now that we could talk about?
Yeah, so I saw it's gone in the chat now. Someone mentioned they liked Carnival Row more than Shadow and Bone. I
That's
haven't
true.
watched Carnival Row, but that did finish up its run in the last week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Thompson, thank you, Richard.
They burned it off.
Yeah, so Carnival Row that Amazon is now done with. But Shadow and Bone season 2 also came out last week. I binged it over the weekend. And man, I did not. I was distraught. Like, not really distraught, because I only care so much about Shadow and Bone, so it's not like The Witcher,
Sure.
where I'm
I gotcha.
going outside in the night and shaking my fists at the full moon and how did we get here. But I was shocked. The Shadow and Bone surprised me more than what has been happening with The Witcher, because the first season of Shadow and Bone was great, in my opinion. Like, whether you liked it or not, I think how they adapted the story, it's one of the really rare examples where it's better than the books. Season 1 of Shadow and Bone. And season 2 went off the rails real hard. Have you watched any of this, Dan? Are you planning on it?
No and no. I watched the first season of Shadow and Bone.
Fair.
Which this series is based on a series of books, Shadow and Bone books by Leigh Bardugo, kind of a Russian set, like a high fantasy world modeled after Tsarist Russia.
Yep.
I watched the first season and I thought it was nice. It's a little too YA for me, I think.
Totally fair.
There's only so many stories about earnest teenagers saving the world I can take. So I abstained. But I watched the first season and I did like it. I thought it was well put together. I really did. And I'm sorry to hear that the second season was, in your words, as you told me, a rotting raccoon carcass on the side of the roads, entrails being torn out by vultures, stinking up the entire Tri-County area.
Okay.
A just abomination of an adaptation. that could single-handedly sink
definitely my
Netflix
words.
as a company. Remember saying this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
You
that's
called me 3
definitely what
a.m.
I
Yeah.
said. I did. Yeah, 3 a.m. your time. I stayed up an extra hour just to call you at a less convenient time about it. Um,
And you did not
but
sound
no,
drunk.
I
You were
mean,
stone cold sober when you did it. Like, you called me up.
that's right.
You were like, Daniel, it's on my mind. I'm clear-headed. You signed a waiver and you just let me have it.
That's right. No, but what? So what I would say with Shadow and Bone is it's it's not that this show has no redeeming qualities. I don't think it was, as you said, a total heaping pile of garbage.
All that
But
stuff. Yeah.
I think it really, really, really dropped the ball in terms of how it portrayed the story. And
Mhm.
I a big part of me wonders if the reason that happened is because Netflix wanted to blow it out into a cinematic universe. Because since
Yes.
Shadow and Bone season 2 has come out, we've learned that Netflix is developing a spin-off for the Crows characters in the story. Six of Crows is going to be its own spin-off. It's going to run concurrently to season 3 and hopefully season 4 if the show goes on. Um, and basically, I don't think that was always the plan. Um, because this show was originally pitched as a three season thing. The first season did basically the first book of Shadow and Bone, and it made up a bunch of stuff for the Crows characters to
Mhm.
tie them into it. The Crows characters are from a different series. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are their books.
They're like kind of like
And
the
that worked
shady, thieving underworld earnest teenagers, whereas Alina and the Shadow and Bone crew
exactly.
are the more the bright and cheery earnest teenagers who are going to save the world.
Yeah, well, the Alina's so her books are a trilogy, and that trilogy is very much a YA chosen one romantic fantasy series. Lee Bardugo wanted to do something different after that. So the Crows, it's basically like Game of Thrones meets Ocean's 11. That's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's cute.
the easy pitch for Six of Crows because they're heist novels. And there are six of them. They're a gang of thieves, each with a different skill set, basically.
Oh, that's fun.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I'm actually reading Six of Crows right now. It's an awesome book. Um, so going back to the show, the season 1 ended basically setting up the Crows to be more or less where they were leading into Six of Crows. There's some timeline stuff, like there's a drug in Six of Crows that affects Grisha, which are the magic users in this series. It gives them extra powers. So the question of how that would fit into Alina's story was always a big one because the books that it's after, and there's this feeling that if it had come out before, like why wouldn't the Darkling want that? He probably would have. So it
Ben
was always a
Barnes.
question of how they were going to handle it. But the way that the show decided to handle it was they crammed 2 books for Alina, Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising, into this one season and basically cut out all of the things that made her story unique because
Mhm.
you're
Like more popular than Shadow and Bone
yes,
series. So that was like it sold
hands
better.
down.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I actually know this for a fact because I was working in a Barnes and Noble when
Oh,
Six of
that's
Crows and
right.
Crooked Kingdom came out. So yes is the answer to that. That is the series that basically took her from being a successful fantasy author to like a superstar in her genre was
Huh.
Six of Crows. Because it just is a better book, like hands down. And that's
Gotcha.
what got this series made essentially was the showrunner for this series was reading Six of Crows. He tweeted at Lee Bardugo about it. And then when Netflix wanted to do the series, she was like, hey, this guy likes my book Six of Crows. Maybe we can get him.
So that
Um,
explains then, right, why Netflix would mash the two Shadow and Bone books together and burn through it quick because they want to get to the stuff that people actually want to see, which is Six of Crows, I'm assuming. But I guess the problem would
yes.
be, okay, yeah, I understand why you did that to get to the popular stuff, but if you already committed to telling this story, you're telling it badly, and even it's no excuse
Yeah.
to rush through something to get to the part you really want to get to when you set that stuff up and you have a responsibility to follow through with it and do it well. And here you've just kind of
Yeah.
blasted through it.
That's basically my feeling on it. I think it's very obvious to me that that is what they wanted to do, because obviously the fans love the crows. Like, even
Hmm.
in these first seasons, like, most people really talk about how much they love the crows more than they're like, Alina, I relate so much to being, swept into a fantasy Russian court of
A fun
scheming
summoner.
magic users. Yeah. So most people seem to like the crows more. And
Fun summoner.
basically, Netflix came back and said, our data shows, which you pointed this out, that's a red flag right there. Our data shows that people want more of the crows crossing over with Alina. So basically, this season invented another made up storyline for the crows that I don't think worked anywhere near as well as the first season. And it
Gotcha.
cut basically everything that made Alina's story unique out of the books. And again, not like I it's so funny to me because, like, I know I can be kind of a this is the way it was in the book game whatever purist a little bit at times,
Sure.
but like, there are great reasons to make changes and adaptations, like, of
Sure.
course, but the Shadow and Bone, the original trilogy, I didn't love it. It,
Hmm.
I thought it was pretty decent, but it's not like I'm super attached to those books. But the few things that really set it apart are all things that fell by the wayside. So the easy example that I keep falling back to is, there's reference to a thing called the Firebird um in this series, which is basically a mythical bird. Exactly. It's just like you just did.
Yeah.
And Alina needs to go searching for it. She wants part of its bones to make a thing to amplify her power. But when in the book, she finds this bird, it's a real
Mhm.
bird that she finds. And then she realizes the bird isn't what she needed to find all along. It's a person who she's connected to who would actually serve as the amplifier.
All right.
The the show, instead of that, it is easily one of the most fascinating parts of trilogy about Alina, and instead the show just totally glossed over it. So there are
Hmm.
a lot of ways that I don't think it did very well by Alina's story in particular. Ben Barnes too, actually, because the Darkling is way more
Barnes.
threatening in the books than he is in the television series. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any questions about this? Because my take is exactly what you said. They really wanted to get to Six of Crows. They crammed everything they needed to cram into this season, maybe because they didn't think they would get renewed for a third season if they didn't. Or they didn't think they could have the Crows tread water for yet another season, or what, however you want to slice it. The overwhelming feeling I have is they did rush through. Um, so
I mean,
yeah.
I don't really have questions because I'm not terribly invested, but I'm sorry they seem, I mean, it sounds like something a studio. No, I guess it sounds kind of unique. Like, I want to blame it on cinematic universitis, where everyone wants to
Yeah.
jump to, you know, the Witcher cinematic universe from one show to two shows to like three shows to a movie,
Yeah,
Rayman cinematic universe, the
totally.
MonsterVerse, all that stuff. It
It's
This does
easy
sound
to make
a
that
little
comparison.
I mean, this sounds a little different. It sounds like the guys do really love, but just not the books they're adapting,
Yeah.
which is also a problem. Like, it's
Yes.
clear to me that again, like, Game of Thrones proved that you can have multiple stories going on at the same show and just kind of have it. Like, Arya's and Bravos and Sansa's and Winterfell and Cersei's and King's Landing and Daenerys, and
Yeah,
they're all different.
totally.
So just why not have Alina doing her thing and then the Crows going on an ice court heist, whatever they do in their book, and they can meet up
Yeah.
eventually when they get to like the next series, like eventually. But um, but Netflix data and look, data's important. You need data. Data's nice, numbers, letters, all that good
Sure.
stuff. But I don't know. You can't if it if what the data if the data shows that what you should do is ruin the story, um,
Yeah.
you shouldn't listen to it all the time. Like, there's time for human input, and it should have been then.
Yeah, I think obviously we're not behind the data to see this type of stuff, but I'm of the opinion that data can be great for, making choices about, like, say, what story to tell in the first place. You
Sure.
have a
Yeah, yeah,
popular
yeah.
series. You see that? Sure, make more of it. But I think when when you're letting the data lead your creative process, like people like these characters together, that's the data. Let me
So jam them in,
make that
whatever it
happen more.
takes.
That because the thing that makes me wonder about is how much conviction did you have in the first place?
Yeah.
If that's what's going to change your mind about where characters are, like you use Game of Thrones for an example. People love crossovers on Game of Thrones. Those are always highlights true. When different characters meet. But if David Benioff and Dan Weiss had said, it'd be great if Cersei and Dany accidentally met each other in a cafe in, I don't know, Lys, because they both happen to be there, because that's what the people want, it would have been awful. So I think, yeah, I do think that you're very right about them wanting to get to the stories they wanted to tell and basically kneecapping this season for the sake of that. And it is tricky because I do think a cinematic universe for the Grishaverse, which is what Leigh Bardugo's book universe is called, I think it's justified. This is not a Witcher situation where I'm like, why are you guys thinking of spinoffs? Like, I think a Six of Crows spinoff is a good idea, in my opinion. They've said that is already written.
And it's coming.
They really hope they get to make it. Well, it's not greenlit yet. It depends on how well season 2 does. But that is something they've said, the showrunner, Eric Heiserer, has said is probably the most book accurate thing they've done so far, or it's the closest to a 1-to-1 adaptation.
Nice.
And part of that is just that the book is so much better. This is what he said. This is the best writing we have from the author. And therefore we've translated it easily, the closest for the screen.
I'm sorry, it's turned out a little awkward. Oh, hell. Wait, I was trying to look up if it's... never mind. It is number 1 on Netflix right now, so that's nice. God, I hate Netflix, and they play things without you just touching it. So maybe it is going to be a bit of success, but we'll see. See if their gamble pays off.
It's a tricky thing because on the one hand, I'm like, man, they really botched a lot of stuff about this season. On the other, I don't really want this to get canceled because I want them to have a chance to do better, because the first season was good. The second season had some very obvious growing pains. But if the reason for that was because they wanted to get to the stuff that would be better, like, I do hope they get the chance to at least try it. And I know Netflix has a tendency to pull the plug on stuff, so I'm really disappointed in this season of Shadow and Bone, but I also do want it to get renewed. That's my take.
I'll cross one finger for you, but not two, because it seems like you're of two minds about it. I hope and I'm sorry it didn't live up to your expectations, Daniel.
I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, I wasn't too heartbroken because this is not a series, it's not like a House of the Dragon or something where I would have been really upset if it was awful. But yeah, it does make me nervous just for the future of the show, and I hope they find their footing in season 3 and beyond if they get that opportunity.
We'll see in 2 to 3 years. Any other thoughts about Shadow and Bone from any of you? Christian says that it's my fault. I think he probably meant about the drop off in signal, but I prefer to think that he means that his fault Shadow and Bone season 2 wasn't good.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, and Nicole,
pretty powerful.
So Nicole says, I liked it, but didn't read the book, so I had nothing to compare it to. And
maybe
honestly,
for that
Nicole,
person.
Yeah, that is the ideal place to come from, in my opinion. For this season especially, I really don't think this season is geared toward the book readers like at all. Like, most of the people I've seen really upset are people who liked one or other of the book series. So good for you, Nicole. That's definitely you are in the optimal
target demographic
space for Shadow and Bone season 2.
Yeah, Dan is Daniel over here. If an author changes a single word, he has been known to set his domicile alight. I'm kidding. You're not doing that. I'm putting a lot of words in your mouth today.
Yes, with all the books I have in it, I set alight as well in the domicile. clearly.
What makes good Kindle
No,
books.
I am, for the record, I think changes and adaptations are
Of course.
totally fine. It's just about staying true to the spirit of the thing. And I don't think Shadow and Bone season 2 did that. I think it also changed the ending of Alina's trilogy in some major ways that I think really betray the spirit of the books. And that for me is the line that you don't cross. Make changes. Like The Expanse is a great example. They made tons of changes and it was awesome because part of it was because the writers of the Expanse books were in the writing room, so they had a say in how that happened. But they also, like, the changes still felt true to the story, true to the characters, and that is a huge difference from changing things wholesale and then having it mean the opposite of what it meant in the book, for example.
At the end of the day, we don't really care about, like, is it adapted word for word? If it's good, people are gonna like it no matter what. I really do believe that. So, like, adapting it word for word isn't some kind of magic bullet. You just have to write a good story, and you can do that if you adapt it one for one, or if you can do it if you go on your own. If you go out on your own,
absolutely.
I mean, it does seem like when people change things greatly, it can mess things up. But there's no reason it has to. There are examples. I talked about the whole filmography thing before.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rehash that.
Well, I think you're totally right. If it's still good, it's still good. And I think there are ways that like just this season, they kind of like broke their own internal consistency a few times too. Like Alina and the Darkling have this mental link that he basically can like invade her dreams. And it's because of a very specific physical object that connects the two of them. At one point late in the season, they sever that connection at great cost. Someone dies to do this thing. And then in like the next scene, the Darkling invades the dreams of a totally different character. And it's never really explained why that is possible. And it doesn't make any sense by the show's own logic. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think if my favorite example of an adaptation that was changed tremendously that still works, that's hugely popular, is Jurassic Park. That is totally different than the Jurassic Park book. It's a complete, like, events wise, some of the characters, totally different story, but it's fantastic and we all love it. And it's a huge hit. And like, that's because the movie's just great. So yeah,
The Shining's a good one.
Yeah,
it was started by the way that Stanley Kubrick changed The Shining a lot, and Stephen King hated what he did. But at the end of the day, the movie has lasted for 50 years or 40 years, I guess. And people know it better than the book they ever did. So you can definitely change things and have them last. And then Stephen King made a book accurate version movie later, and everyone hated it.
Bomb.
So it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Steven Weber.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. So yeah, qualms, but I hope it gets a chance to grow back into its strength, we'll say.
Crossing them fingers. And Julie is watching Carnival Row. Do you enjoy it, Julie? Because
nice.
I heard some mixed things. Like our viewer Richard Preston didn't like the ending, but apparently it's gotten some good marks elsewhere. Odd little show, never really broke out, but I'm glad I got a chance to wrap up.
It had a rough run, Carnival Row, because of the second season was filming during the pandemic, and then there were delays, and then it wasn't planned to be the end of the show, I think, when they filmed it. So
anyway, what's happening in the wide world of sports, Daniel?
Well, in the wide world of sports played by people with swords and monstrous powers, round 3 of our Fandom Madness is approaching. So, what exactly is this Fandom Madness, Dan? Round 2 just finished.
Madness? It did.
Just today.
Every year, we pit 64 characters from sci-fi, fantasy, books, movies, TV against each other in a March Madness style tournament, where 64 characters enter, go through a round of matchups. Only one come out on top. We just finished round 3. Everybody from Game
Round
of
2.
Thrones is gone. I'm surprised. Like, they knocked out Daemon Targaryen, Rhaenyra
Yeah.
Targaryen, Daenerys, Jon Snow. The Wheel of Time folk are all gone. But so we'll put up these new matchups tomorrow.
Yeah.
Some of my favorites are gone. I'll admit it. I'm not sure who I'm going to root
Same.
for now. Although
Yeah,
Dream
I was really rooting
knocked
for
out a
Cocaine
win.
Bear.
Oh, I was too. Oh, I kind of wanted him to be in the finals. I was
Yeah.
thinking like Cocaine
So-
Bear versus Damon or Lestat would have been fun for me. But no. Shout out to the Good Omens fandom and the Interview with the Vampire fandom for really repping hard their people. Aziraphale and Crowley on the one hand and Lestat on the other. They're really up in the Twitter. We run these polls on the winteriscoming.net Twitter. You can vote for all of them. The new things will be up tomorrow. But yeah, fun little poll. It's a fun little thing.
Yeah,
Daniel,
it's always a good time. So the matchups we have left. So there's Joel from The Last of Us versus Harley Quinn.
That's cute.
Geralt of Rivia versus Cassian Andor. Evelyn Wang from Everything Everywhere All at Once versus Lestat. Spider-Man versus Darth Vader. Jamie Fraser versus Dream. I'm hoping for Dream just because Jamie Fraser beat Cocaine Bear. I hope he gets his comeuppance. Batman versus Prince Zuko. Galadriel versus the Mandalorian and Grogu. And Aziraphale and Crowley versus
Dark Horse candidates.
I'm gonna root. I'm gonna root for the Good Omens peeps because you're right. I've been pleasantly surprised by how hard the Good Omens fans have been repping their boys Aziraphale and Crowley. I might be saying that wrong. Sorry, don't come for me, Good Omens fans. But yeah, they're probably the ones I'm rooting for most. Them and Joel at this point. How about
Gandalf
you, Dan?
crushes them. I'm tired of Aziraphale and Crowley being in the front. Nah. They got rid of Daenerys. Oh, that ain't shade. That's just pure hatred. That's I mean very upfront. I'm ready for them to get out. I don't think they will though. It is cool that people are really pushing it. I like that. I was rooting for Daemon Targaryen. I was rooting for Cocaine Bear. Lestat's fun to have in there. But yeah, fun times. It's always unpredictable. I think Daenerys was the winner of the last one we did, so it'll be fun to have a new winner. And then before that, it was like Moiraine from the Wheel of Time won one year now, and she was out in the first round. So I think Jon Snow won. So it's cool to have definitely a new winner. I wonder who it'll be. Only you can determine it. I mean you, Daniel, and also you watching.
Yes. And yeah, Martha, if you want to stick up for Jamie, feel free to go vote at @WickNet Twitter when these go up. I assume later today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Wednesday the 23rd on the WickNet Twitter. Yeah, there'll be a post about it too. But yeah, fun times.
Yeah. So that's what's up in Fandom Madness. Shall we? But what are you watching, Dan? Shall we dive right into discussing our latest television joys?
Yeah, and what are you watching out there? Not much has changed. I'm watching the Ted Lasso now. That's cute. The Mandalorian.
Oh, how is it?
It's nice. It's good. It's the final season, which is great. Because they're gonna go out on a high note. It was funny. It's always like, have you ever watched that show? Sweetly funny is the way that sitcom is.
I love the first two seasons.
Pleasantly funny, charming, kind of easy listening sitcom where just kind of put a smile on your face. It's not gonna make you gut bust, but you're gonna like it's kind of buzz throughout the whole thing. I like that show. Show's great.
Yeah.
For All Mankind. I got the Succession screeners, but I'm gonna watch those tonight. Maybe we're starting one of those tonight, so that'll be great too. And John Wick 4 this Friday. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, it does come out this weekend. I'm excited for John Wick 4 too. Those movies are never anything less than a good time.
So good. Again, I discovered them not that long ago. Holy crap, they're good.
Yeah,
I can't wait. And now it's the first one I'm gonna see in the theater. I'm quite excited.
Cool. Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I think I discovered them maybe 2 years ago. So I haven't seen one in theaters either, but I will be seeing this one. So pretty excited about that.
How about you, Dan? You watched anything? Christian's watching Quantum Leap. I think it's on Sci-Fi,
Oh, nice.
and apparently it's getting better, which I'm glad. That show has been humming
That's
along nicely, I hear.
Yeah, I'm really happy for the Quantum Leap fans that the show is doing pretty well. I've been curious about that, but I haven't gotten into it yet. So the main one, I obviously Shadow and Bone was the thing I probably spent the most time watching in the past week.
You loved it.
But I also started just switching things up a little bit. History of the World Part 2, which is a
Ooh,
Mel
how is
Brooks
that? Is
thing
that
on
fun?
Hulu. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I laughed a
I love
lot.
Hulu, of
I've seen
course.
2 episodes. And yeah, it's pretty hilarious. He's got like a great cast of comedians for all these sketches. He's definitely it's funny. I feel like Mel Brooks has been doing things that now might be deemed politically incorrect, but he's been doing them since
Mhm. The
for
70s.
decades. So he just, he's Mel Brooks. We all know what we are getting when you start a Mel Brooks
Mhm.
thing. So it's been great. Uh,
I'll check that out. I
and
want to check that out.
I think you'd probably enjoy it. It's a lot of
I like
fun.
the original. I
Uh,
love Mel Brooks.
yeah. Okay, cool. If you like the original, I'm sure you'll like this
Do you have
one
a
too.
favorite Mel Brooks
Uh,
movie? Just out of curiosity.
um, Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think Young Frankenstein is probably one I've seen the most, but I don't know that
It's
that's
the
my
best, I
favorite.
think. I'm
Yeah.
actually, I think in the exact same way. I think Frankenstein's the best now that I'm older. I think my childhood
Yeah.
favorite is I watched Spaceballs way too many times when I was a kid. I can't
That's
dislodge it from
classic.
my head. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's an irrational, like personal favorite, but I think Young Frankenstein's probably the best one. And Blazing
Yeah.
Saddles, of course, I
That's
quote to people a lot because of how much fun. So tired,
yeah,
tired of
that's
playing this
that's a good
game.
one.
Hmm.
I think Robin Hood Men in Tights is
Oh, another
probably my
great one.
favorite. That's probably the one I've seen the most is Robin Hood Men in Tights. Um, but
Bagel
yeah, so aside from nice. Um, aside from the Mel Brooks, I've also been watching The Mandalorian. Um,
Oh yeah,
and I
how's the new
gotta
one?
say, it's great. I really liked the latest episode, and I think this season in general, I was like really not excited about it. I watched the premiere and I was kind of like, eh. Now that I'm a few episodes in, I'm enjoying it a lot. I love that Katie Sackhoff has more of a
Hmm.
like lead
Meaty
role this
role.
season. Bo-Katan. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm a big Katie Sackhoff stan since Battlestar Galactica, so it's nice to see her kind of at the forefront of the show with Pedro. Um, but yeah, I'm liking it a lot. I think they've gotten better at the puppeting because there have been some really
Hmm.
great Grogu scenes in this season. My favorite, I think, is him running out of the mines in the second episode. It's like a chase scene with Grogu. Um, so yeah, I The
The
Mandalorian.
legs.
I wonder what they're doing with the New Republic stuff. I didn't love that as much as I thought I would. But generally, I'm enjoying it. What? How are you
I
feeling
feel
about it
like the
so far?
Clone Wars and like those animated shows that Dave Filoni also did that kind of thing too, where they would take breaks to do looking at like other things. I think it's like a thing he likes to do.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
I mean, I know that it got off to a bunch of a start in people's eyes. I thought it was solid. I'm still ticked at it for spreading itself out among different shows. I think it was a stupid decision.
Yeah.
But I'm liking it. I think it's good. I want it to have a narrative train that it gets on and then chugs off with and pulls into the final station. And I know it's probably not going to do
Okay.
that. I know that they're probably going to stretch this thing out as long as it can go. And I don't like that. I feel like this season they've been doing a lot of backstory setup context stuff, which tells me,
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the flashback in this one and the New Republic, Coruscant stuff in the last one, that tells me they're not concerned about getting to like whatever the conclusion of this story is anytime soon. Which I don't like that,
Yeah.
but I think the episodes themselves are
Yeah.
well done, and I think I still think this has everything it needs to be a great show. Um, I just don't like the fact that they're gonna kind of take their. I'd like a bit more propulsion in the narrative, I guess. That's kind of like
Yeah,
the next area.
I think that's really fair. I think it's kind of an interesting position that the Mandalorian is in because when the first season came out, in my opinion, part of what made it resonate so much with people was that it was very different from any Star Wars we had
As it
seen. It
was.
was it was smaller scope, self-contained. There was a
Episodic.
very
Oh,
clear
so
through
different.
line of what was going on in the season. Like the season was just about this Mandalorian trying to protect this cute little baby puppet. Um, and that was it. And I think now we're into ambitions about who will rule the planet of Mandalore. We're into how the New Republic is really ineffective, which I will say that has always bothered me. I mainly because I think George Lucas's saga, he spent a lot more time with like why the old Republic fell apart and doing that
Hmm.
in an interesting way that it feels like to get all the way to the end of Return of the Jedi, where now the empires are overthrown, and then to just be like, oh well, the new government was also very ineffectual. Um, I can understand the idea of that thematically, like governments being
Hey,
ineffectual.
that can happen,
Um,
man.
it can, but this from a storytelling element, I don't think they've really earned it. Is kind of my feeling.
I
And I
think they're
think they're
trying
trying
to.
to a little bit. Yes,
I
I
think like
agree
that's
with
the
you. I think
goal.
that's
It's kind of starting to
yeah,
coalesce. I don't know, like Germany had
yeah.
the Kaiser's expansionist government in World War One, and then they had a new government, but it didn't go well, and they had World War Two. So, new governments can suck and also collapse
Well,
and
yeah,
be
of
vulnerable
course. I'm
to
not saying there's
fascists.
not a precedence for it or it doesn't
Sure.
make sense, but I think
All you were saying.
your example
Mhm.
of Germany and specifically Nazi Germany, like that's what George Lucas did in his movies. So they're
Mhm.
basically doing the same thing, except in
Oh
a
yeah.
slightly different way. And part of my issue with the way they're handling it now is they're basically trying to retcon why it because the movies didn't explain it well, right? Their
No, they
sequel
did not.
trilogy. So now they're like, well, maybe we can make it make more sense. And it works. I'm just not 100% on board with it yet, I guess is what I'm saying.
I
But the
agree.
show as a
The
whole
sequels
is
really did
solid.
sort of throw a lot of monkey wrenches into everything. We all would have been better off had they been a little differently conceived. That train's long since left the
Yeah.
station.
Yeah, I think the shows are trying to do basically what the movies probably should have. Just
Sure.
in terms of like, they're now bringing in Thrawn for Ahsoka, and Thrawn is like an iconic Star Wars villain from the books. I haven't
He's
read them,
blue.
but he's blue. Everybody who
He's a
knows
Navi.
any Star Wars books, the not yeah, he's one of the evil Navi. Anyone
Hmm.
who knows the Star Wars books usually talks about how Thrawn is like one of the best villains that's ever been made for Star Wars. And he's a good example of doing something similar without just retreading the same exact ground that
Hmm.
was already covered in the Lucas movies. And I think there are other examples of that in the various Star Wars books. So it just feels like they didn't stretch in any sort of new direction. But at this point, I'll just rant about it for a while. So suffice it to say, season 3 of The Mandalorian is pretty good. It's earning back some goodwill with me after the Book of Boba Fett.
You know what I wanted in the first season?
What?
I wanted them to go off, and I wanted a show about finding the damn planet of the Yodas. And I didn't get anything like that, and I'm still a little bit sad about it.
I mean, it's kind of. I do wonder how that's never been a conversation topic that I can recall. Maybe I'm just forgetting, and it was
I
addressed
don't
like,
know.
are there more of these little Yodas?
There's a couple.
Be, well, there are, and in the prequel movies, there was Yaddle. There
Yaddle.
was a female Yoda,
Cotton
Yaddle.
somewhere.
Yes, Yaddle was a character in the prequel movies.
Mm-hmm.
Who I think made a reappearance in Tales of the Jedi, maybe recently, voiced by
Oh,
Bryce
yeah,
Dallas
sure, yeah.
Howard.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, so there's room. That's the thing. That's the thing about this that gets me occasionally. There's a lot of room to explore. So anytime it feels like they're retreading ground, it's like you have so many options. Why are we retreading ground? Um, but yeah,
Interesting.
anyway, The Mandalorian is
Anyway, yeah.
definitely worth checking out. I have been
Good.
enjoying this season a lot.
I'll watch. I'm also watching Perry Mason, by the way, which is quite well done, well made, moody, noirish, fun. Good times there too. All right. High
Yeah.
anxiety is a good one. You're right, Christian. Should we go on to the lightning round?
Yeah. Do you want to ask me first? You want me to ask you first? We can go either way.
Well, you
Why don't you
Aaron
ask me
says,
first?
all right. I mean, you wrote them.
Yes.
You are half right, Aaron. Okay. Let's see. Where is okay. Put 20 seconds on the clock for the Wick News lightning round. Oh, this one's sad. Daniel, Lance Reddick has died.
Yes.
He was 62, and John Wick 4 will be dedicated to Lance Reddick. Great actor. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, amazing actor. I was shocked and really saddened by this. He's kind of a singular talent. There's nobody else out there quite like Lance Reddick. I first saw him in Lost, but have seen him in tons of other stuff since then and always loved watching him. Probably best known for The Wire, but yeah, John Wick 4 is dedicated to him and he'll be greatly missed. Um, Producer Richard says we have no buzzer, so we are gonna move on. But
Oh, don't we?
all right.
Wait. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you have a buzzer now. Oh, okay. So the next story, this is a happier one. I guess depending on your perspective on it. So Everything Everywhere All at Once directors / screenwriting duo Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, collectively known as the Daniels, they are
Cute.
going to direct on the upcoming Star Wars series Skeleton Crew. What is that, Dan? Should we be excited?
I mean, it's another Star Wars show. I mean, my honest reaction to this is it sounds like selling out, but I also heard like they were talking about like we did it for the healthcare, which I can believe. Like it's just, I'm sure they'll do a good job.
Yeah.
I love that movie. It's just sad that like really creative, talented folk, kind of their goal is to make a franchise thing because that's what's going to get them like financial security rather than like this really cool
Healthcare.
original idea. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Definitely something to be said for the U.S. film industry and that
a lot to
regard.
unpack there. Should be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Daniel, another big corporate move. Veteran Marvel executive Victoria Alonso, who has been like the president of special effects for Marvel Studios since before Iron Man, has left the company.
Yeah, this is a huge deal. Like you said, Victoria Alonso was a producer on every film and I believe show in the MCU. Became an executive producer for Avengers, has been instrumental in the entire franchise, and she left the company last week after 17 years. We don't know why. Could be she just wanted to retire, but we're definitely going to keep an eye on that story.
Right.
But speaking of Marvel, they are reportedly gearing up to start filming a Mephisto Disney Plus special with Sacha Baron Cohen.
So what I think I actually heard was that there's a special inside Agatha Coven of Chaos or whatever it's called about Mephisto.
That's cool.
I don't know if it's like an episode or if he's like a TV show within the show. Something's up. Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be Mephisto in, I think, Agatha Coven of Darkness, and it'll be fun. Cute. Why not? Cool. He's always good. He's like the best part of a lot of movies I've noticed, which is weird. like Sweeney Todd, Les Mis. Just saying. Okay.
That's funny. I was gonna say you're thinking of Sweeney Todd. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it
true.
was.
You never get a bad time with Sacha Baron Cohen.
I mean, the movies he was in, like they both kind of sucked. But here's the best thing about them. Okay. Daniel, Ben Affleck confirms that he won't direct anything in James Gunn's new DC cinematic universe. The former Batman is hanging up his bat things for good.
Yeah, so this was interesting because a while back James Gunn said he'd love to get Ben Affleck to direct. They had a meeting with him. It was just a matter of getting the right project. And Ben Affleck recently was basically just like, look, I have zero interest in going back to DC. I wish them all the best. Justice League was the worst experience I've ever had on a movie. So I'm not
just
doing
period.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just period. He talked about how it derailed his life for a while, the Justice League stuff. So I don't blame him one bit. But this is an interesting one that I won't lie, this made me feel a little bit like what you said about the Daniels. I got a similar pang when I read this story, which is that Netflix hired the screenwriter who co-wrote Dune and Doctor Strange, John Spates, to write their Gears of War series, which is based on a huge best-selling video game franchise.
I don't feel quite. I mean, like, as Dune and Doctor Strange are also big franchises, so he's not making he's not going to like a blazingly original thing to a franchise. I think. I mean, and no disrespect, he has a job. Cool, good for this guy.
Yeah.
With the Gears of War show, I never played Gears of War, so I'm not really invested. But it could be good. I hear it's interesting, so I'll check it out. All right, Daniel, I have some news about the Dwayne Johnson Rock. The Rock reportedly wouldn't let the second Shazam movie use characters from Black Adam in the post-credit scene. The Rock has that kind of pull at DC.
I don't know exactly what the deal is with this, but there's a fair amount of mudslinging going on. Zachary Levi has apparently commented on some posts being like, the truth will set you free when it comes out type thing. So there's something weird going on, but reportedly, the director said that they were going to use characters from Black Adam in the post-credit scene, and The Rock, they basically were told they couldn't do it like 3 days before they were shooting. So they had to come up with a totally different.
All right. I mean,
I don't know how
is that they wanted Dwayne Johnson and he said I won't do it. But I'm not sure the details.
Not even. It was two of the Justice Society characters, I think Hawkman and someone else, who were introduced in Black Adam.
Okay.
So I don't know how that works out in terms of who has stakes in that movie, but it was their plan for Shazam. Zachary Levi was supposed to have a post-credit scene in Black Adam too, and reportedly, again, we don't know quite with the mudslinging. Reportedly that The Rock acts that beat for Superman. So
all right,
who knows?
The Rock throwing his weight around. Neat.
Yeah, apparently. All right, so Dan, this is an interesting one. So Ciarán Hinds, who is Mance Rayder on Game of Thrones, Rory Kinnear, and Tanya Moody have joined the cast of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power season 2.
Yeah, new cast members. Ciarán Hinds, of course, Mance Rayder. Rory Kinnear, I remember as Frankenstein's monster on Penny Dreadful. He was very good. And I don't Tanya Moody, but they're still building it. They're building out the cast. New season. They'll try again. I didn't hate the first season, but wanted more from it. But I'll check out the second. I hope they can be a spectacular success. And sorry, Julie, you're right. Yeah. Thanks for keeping us honest. Okay, and finally,
thank you, Julie.
The final one for Daniel. Daniel.
Yes.
Chad L. Coleman, who plays Clyden in one of your favorite shows, The Orville, and creator Seth MacFarlane have both kind of hinted that The Orville might get a 4th season as you, and now me, because I'm almost done. So desperately want. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. The Orville, its 3rd season was great. It finished airing in like September or August, I think. So we've been waiting a long time to see if it'll get a 4th season, and basically Chad Coleman said last week that it's basically industry stuff. Disney's trying to make decisions about other projects and can't decide on the Orville until after. And Seth MacFarlane kind of backed that up the next day. So fingers crossed, but they're saying stay optimistic.
Chingutos. All right.
Yeah.
And that is our program. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you to you, Daniel, and to me, and to Richard, and to Scruffy for participating.
Yeah.
What a good time. You know, we do this every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, 1 p.m. up in the mountains, and noon up in the West Coast. And we're also available in podcast form at Google Play, iTunes, wherever podcasts are available.
All those places.
So until next time, clever outro. See you later.